It is easier than ever to learn and share facts, but social media doesn't always make it easy to know what is true versus what is someone's opinion. Science is always about adapting and learning more, and we want to keep you all up to date with what we know here. Today on the podcast, we have Howard Gurney with some shareable science-based stats we hope will help you when talking about Young Living with your friends and family or whoever else. And it's all backed up with a proven process you can trust. Hello and welcome to Young Living's podcast, The Wild Drop. My name is Jacob Young, your host. Young Living is the world leader in producing and distributing premium essential oils, and this podcast will provide you with drops of information about Young Living, including stories, history, product information, lots of little fun facts, and even more. Well, welcome to the podcast for the very first time, Dr. Howard Gurney.
Well, thank you. I'm not a doctor yet. I'm in my doctorate, but I'm not a doctor.
Well, Mr. Howard Gurney, achieving his doctorate. So, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come on here and share.
Of course. You have actually been with us for a decent amount of time now, but I don't think you've properly been introduced across all the board. So to our listeners who are new to listening to you, which is going to be just about everybody, it'd be great if you kind of introduced yourself, your background, a little bit of your history, and what brought you into Young Living, and maybe some insight on some projects that you've worked on that are already launched and what you can share on some possible upcoming ones.
Oh, fantastic. I love sharing research. So I've been 23 years in the dietary supplement industry, and there were some unethical issues and unethical decisions being made that led me to a company up north, and I spent 18 years at that company back in Utah, and it was a science-led, science-driven company, and the primary focus of that company was to keep the cells alive. So I was entrenched in how to formulate products to keep cellular activity flourishing. Decisions made at that company got me looking elsewhere because of, again, going down some unethical practices, which led me, thankfully, to Young Living. And when I got to Young Living, I was so impressed with the vertical integration, where we could take what we make on a farm and actually put that into a product. I don't know that there's any other company in the world that can actually claim, and I know we talk about seed to seal, but in learning about Gary Young, he went beyond, the seed. He went into the soil, right? And so the nutrients and how you farm that soil to make that plant flourish, and all the nutrients in that soil to get into the plant. And then he went beyond the seal of the finished product, and how the bioactivity of the molecules that are in that plant can interact with your cell. So I'm really excited about the research that we're actually doing right now, trying to continue the legacy that Gary put into the D. Gary Young Research Institute. And it's just a mantle that I'm trying to step into that role, and it's shoes that I'll probably never fill because of just the incredible man that he was and the scientist that he was. But we're doing pretty good. Some recent products, the daily hormone essentials, really trying to balance a woman's hormone. There's products that are already existing that help with the cortisol. We're looking into energy. We're looking into sleep. You name it, we're kind of going down that path.
Yeah, I've been super impressed since you've been here. And, Howard and I were talking off this episode really quickly. We had a product that kind of came our way that somebody wanted us to look at. And it's so fun to just see your expertise shine, seeing how you know the ingredients super well, especially, what ingredients we like and don't like. And then ratios, I think, was my favorite part. And you were just looking at the ingredient deck going, yes. Well, that works, but there's like pixie dust amount in there. So it's not really beneficial to anyone. I just found that so funny and entertaining. So since you've been here, what are some key products that you've worked on besides like daily hormone essentials that you've kind of been really intrigued by and just interested by? And then I would also love to know what products you've used that you weren't necessarily a part of that you've enjoyed the most so far.
Great questions. So I can tell you that I love pro-inflammation and anti-inflammation in the body. Inflammation is actually a healthy response in the body, but if inflammation is left on for too long, that can lead to a world of problems in your body. So you need a balance from the pro-inflammatory cytokines to the anti-inflammatory cytokines. And so when you have the interleukin-6 or the interleukin-17, the IL-17, or C-reactive protein, and that's high in your body, those are all pro-inflammatory cytokines. The slow buildup of those cytokines can lead to a disease-related condition. So to balance that, there are some natural compounds that we have in our plants, in our farm, from soil to the cellular function, or from seed to sill, that we can actually put into a product and have that affect the human body in an incredible way. As we're sitting here, our cells are dividing. You have mitosis, and you have all the different phases of mitosis. Those cells reproduce, and as those cells reproduce, your telomere length will shorten every time it goes through that cellular division. Over time, those telomeres get so short that your cell needs to die, and it needs to die properly or go through apoptosis. If that cell doesn't go through apoptosis in the right way, it will become what we call a zombie cell. It's literally a zombie cell or a senescent cell. So that senescent cell will slowly emit these pro-inflammatory cytokines, and that will build and build and build until you actually can develop diseases. So the research that we're doing right now are some natural bioactive compounds in our plants, through our deep spectra technology, through turmeric squared, through rosmarinic acid in our rosemary squared that we're looking at. And those will actually target those senescent cells and either force it to go into apoptosis or cell death, as it properly should, or it will shut off those pro-inflammatory cytokines being released. So that's a project that I'm really excited about. And if you can control senescent cells in the body, you actually can live younger. It's in our title.
It's funny you say that, because what a lot of people don't realize is years and years and years ago, it actually used to be called Living Young.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it was Living Young Corp, and then it became Young Living Incorporated or something like that. So fascinating. Honestly, I love listening to you talk, because I know about half of what you're saying, and half of it is new. And this is the biology class I wish I had back in 8th grade, honestly. Because my biology teacher in 8th grade was terrible. I don't think I remember, much. I just remember that he had a wall lined with cans of Mountain Dew.
Oh.
Yeah, from floor to ceiling and all the way across.
Yeah.
So I don't know how his kidneys were functioning, but probably not very well.
So the actual microbiome that gets affected by high sugar amount, if you have an imbalance in your microbiome or your gut flora, that actually can throw off your gut-liver axis. That can throw off your gut-brain axis. You can have inflammation coming from your gut to where you won't lose any weight. Another thing that's super fascinating, and I can go on and be nerding out here for a long time, but is just where we all started, where Young Living started with lavender.
Yeah.
Lavender is such an amazing product. I recently read a study from Iran on 90 cardiac patients that went in for heart surgery. 90. 45 went into a test group, 45 went into a control group. Before the test group went in for their heart surgery, they had their blood measured for cortisol levels. And then they had 2 drops of lavender diffusing in water, just 2 drops. Post surgery, they came out and they measured their blood cortisol. What would you guess would be the percentage decrease of cortisol, which is a hormone, the stress hormone? What would you think with 2 drops of lavender oil would be the decrease of cortisol levels? Think about going in for heart surgery.
Yeah.
Talk about the anxiety and stress of going in. Your cortisol levels are through the roof.
Yeah.
So what would you guess?
I would assume it's, I don't want to guess too high, but I know for me personally and for everybody else, as far as my history and understanding of lavender, 30 to 40% at least.
That's a great guess. 70%.
Oh my gosh.
69.7% decrease in cortisol with 2 drops of lavender oil. You know what the unique thing about that is? It's not Young Living lavender. So now you apply the Young Living lavender test that we've done, where we have 30 more identified bioactive compounds in the lavender than anything else on the market. 30. And we have 33 more olfactory receptors triggered from our lavender than anything else on the market. So at 69.6, 69.7% decrease from a non-Young Living lavender, and then having our lavender tremendously more with that olfactory that talks to the amygdala, that talks to the hypothalamus. Your HPA axis is your hypothalamus to your pituitary. Your pituitary then talks to the adrenal glands and says, hey, release the cortisol because you're stressed.
Scent is so important. I don't think people realize just how important scent truly is. I mean, all of our senses are needed and function, so differently. I was so amazed by when we came out with that chart, the olfactory chart that you were talking about. And I'll go a little bit more into it because I think people need to understand this. And I can't remember, it's like X amount of squares across and X amount of squares down. And it's basically how many times your olfactory system can trigger certain things or certain commands or prompts within the brain. And correct me if I'm wrong because I'm probably going to say something wrong. But this chart would highlight in basically it would be a saturation of color. From a very light purple, because we're doing lavender, to a very dark purple. Dark purple meaning it's hitting it very, very hard.
Triggering it, yep.
And you would look at it compared to a store-bought lavender from just your typical grocery store, and you would see mostly very light purple. You'd see maybe 1 or 2 slightly darker purples, and then you compared it to our lavender, and the whole thing was essentially dark purple. It was shocking to see, right? But that is just for me, that was so exciting because it's another way for us to set a standard, right?
100%.
And it's just something that people have never done before either.
Seed to seal, soil to cellular is what I keep calling it. But we can affect that from the very beginning stages all the way through to cellular activity that's actually going to elicit a healthy benefit in your body.
I love that, soil to cellular. I'm almost wondering if we need to trademark that now. That is so good. Is there anything that you've seen as far as kind of going back through notes or talking with the R&D team or just seeing some of the research that my dad Gary had done that you would like to go back to, or some breadcrumbs that were left behind that you feel like would be really cool to kind of pick up and resume on?
Man, this feels like Tony Stark actually seeing what his dad worked on. Yes, there's a tremendous amount. In fact, Mary just gave me binders and binders and binders with plastic overhead where you put it onto
I know
an
exactly
overhead
which
projector.
binders you're talking about.
And I've just barely scratched the surface of going through that. But Deep Spectra, the very beginnings of Deep Spectra and how there's more heavier compounds that we were throwing away. We were simply throwing away in the biomass. The hydrosols and the benefit of hydrosols with the compounds that exist in the actual hydrosols, to develop a validated method to test those hydrosols now is very much in our wheelhouse where that wasn't there before. To look at natural compounds like rosemary combining with the hydrosols to get natural preservation. The whole olfactory and the amygdala, he has a whole big section on the amygdala. And how that amygdala actually turns on or off the parasympathetic nervous system. Well, we're working with a team in Japan right now where what does get turned on and turned off by that olfactory receptor and the amygdala and the fight or flight mechanism. Sleep is very much impacted by this. And everybody says, well, lavender helps you sleep. Well, why does it help you sleep? The GABA aminobutyric acid receptors in the brain get triggered through an actual cascading effect or a domino effect to actually turn that on and help you go to sleep. The neurotransmitter inhibition of certain things from inhaling these wonderful blends that he put together, I don't think he knew at the time when he put these together how that is actually triggering these different receptors and mechanisms in the brain. We're now putting that science together, and he's definitely left a strong trail of breadcrumbs, more like a whole loaf of bread, not even a breadcrumb to go after. And it's pretty fun. It's really fun to dive into that.
I truly appreciate you looking into that, because I initially worried that we wouldn't have new things to go after, right? Or we'd have a really hard time looking for these new things after my dad passed, because he was such an innovator and looking at all these different things. And then when we found those, well, we found a lot of notes, and then those binders that you're talking about. Granted, I don't know much of what I was reading, but I understood a little of it. And it's so exciting to hear that from you, of being like, no, there's still so much more that we can bring to the table. And I think you're right. To some extent, you probably could realize or see that something was going on, but not entirely sure how to put that on paper or to understand what exactly was happening there. And now that we have the technology to do it, like Deep Spectra, that's so exciting to hear.
And we're getting better and better. What's really impressive to me is, as I've learned about Gary, he partnered with some of the foremost scientists in the world on this stuff. And they had volumes. I mean, we talk about the binders from Gary. I mean, you start to think about the binders and the books and the articles and the published papers that he dealt with these scientists all over the world. All of them left another trail of breadcrumbs. So it's almost like the more we know, the more we don't know.
Yeah, correct.
It really is. And the more that we find out different pathways and a whole spider web of information in the science field that we're uncovering daily. It's really fun. It's really exciting.
So awesome. I love it. What would you say has been your favorite part since coming to Young Living? Is it the products? Is it the community? And maybe it's not just a single simple answer.
I think it's a combination of the excitement of the products, the excitement of the opportunities of some products that are kind of missing in the arsenal, or taking something that was like Gary used to do. He used to take legacy formulas and he would pioneer them, right? As soon as he come out with something, he's looking to how to make that product better. So we have some really great products. I love lavender. I love lime in the morning. I love the lime oil. I put that right here on my hands and I sniff that lime to wake myself up. I love it. I'm currently in my doctorate program and I have to wake up early, and that lime wakes me right up. And when I go to bed, I love to diffuse that lavender. I'm loving the whole body cleanse, the liver tone. My wife is absolutely loving, the daily hormone essentials. There's some really exciting things coming out that we can't share on this podcast. But it's stuff that's going to recruit people to the business because it elicits a very strong scientific reaction in the body. And Gary would always go after stuff that is substantiated and you have the proof that it works. I'm never a fan of pixie dusting. And so that's really exciting to go into the world of the products, and I could nerd out on the products all the time. But a second thing is Mary Young. I sit and I watch Mary. She deeply loves the people. And I've been in companies and I've seen management where they say they love the people, but I think none of that compares to the actual inherent love that she has, genuine love for the people. And she's not driven by the money. She's driven by the community and the love of the people first, and everything else will fall in line. And so, I experienced that when I went to Europe. I've experienced that just meeting with her with different departments and how she just loves the people. So that's been a real bright spot.
That's awesome to hear. I appreciate you sharing that. I want you to also talk slightly about pixie dust. We've mentioned it a few times. Kind of explain what that pixie dust means, and honestly, we just had this conversation the other day with this other product. I think that's probably the best way to explain it. And just how much of an emphasis we really focus on when it comes to ratios and amounts and how they mix in with the products and why it is so important and so vital. I was shocked hearing this from you the other day because, once again, my time spent in R&D and with my dad, I know a little bit, but when I was hearing it from you, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that your body actually doesn't use that much. Anywho, I'll let you continue and kind of dive into that.
Yeah,
more,
there's some ingredients that will elicit a small amount of bioactivity in the body. I mean, inhaling an oil, right? Inhaling an oil with 2 drops. That's a small amount, but it elicits a bioactive reaction in the body. There are a lot of deception products in the marketplace where people will say, hey, I want a label claim. I want the consumer to see that we have ashwagandha in the product. But when you get into the actual scientific substantiation of how much ashwagandha you need, or how much curcumin you need in the body, or some of these adaptogens that you need to actually affect your body to adapt to the stress, you need a substantial amount. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of this to actually get through and be bioavailable into the body. When you see a product that comes out with 10 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 30 milligrams of certain things that are not hitting clinical dosing, you're not getting a very good benefit of that amount in the body. So I call that pixie dusting, fairy dusting that ingredient onto the label so that people are saying, hey, I'm buying a product that has ashwagandha in it or curcumin, and you really don't have the amount that's going to give you the benefit. So my philosophy is that we're going to research and we're going to find clinical studies, preferably double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled studies, and we're going to go after the clinical dosing so that we can prove that that in the body is going to give you a benefit.
Yeah. And you said it all varies specifically on the ingredient. I can't remember which one we were looking at yesterday, but it was something along the lines of they had, what was it, like 12 milligrams in there.
12 milligrams.
And you were telling me that they would at least need 500 milligrams because the body only uses about 5% of the amount of that ingredient, just with the way that your body interacts with it.
What's funny about that is it was 12 milligrams of a blend of 5 ingredients. 12 milligrams total of a blend of 5 ingredients. Now, the ingredients on there are great ingredients, right? Fantastic ingredients, but 12 milligrams for 5 ingredients. When one of those ingredients you needed 500 milligrams and you're at 12.
And then we did the math based on what as much as how much the body would be able to take in. It was like 0.7 is what they would end up getting from it. So
ridiculous amount.
Pixie dusting.
Pixie dusting.
That's pixie dusting.
And I'm not about pixie dusting at Young Living. We're never going to participate. In fact, I can tell you right now that we've got several formulas that were in development, and I've reviewed the formulas, and a couple of them came to me with 75 milligrams, and I said, well, can I see the actual scientific substantiation as to why, or the rationale is what we call it. Where's the scientific rationale for 75 milligrams? In reviewing that, it was nowhere near. So the reasoning was like, hey, we had to lower that because that's a very expensive ingredient. Well, then take it out. I'd rather have it out than to just label claim it because it's not going to give you a benefit in the body. Let's take something else and increase it than to just throw something on the label.
Yep. Agreed. No, I really like that. And we don't ever do anything small here, so it's always on a much larger scale. So I guess one of the last questions that I have is you talked about going into your doctorates. What are you doing? What is that journey kind of like? And is that the ultimate end goal for you? Has that always been something that you've been wanting to do, or?
It's definitely something that I've wanted to do. So I've got my biology degree from BYU. I've got my master's degree in bioscience from Johns Hopkins University, and then I'm going after my doctorate of health sciences from Purdue University. And there's a pretty broad range. Right now I'm studying how healthcare doesn't sufficiently cover your actual health. Writing a big old research paper on that. My thesis is probably going to be around quercetin, a bioactive compound that we are going to be trying to harvest right in our fields, that we're going to be trying to put into certain blends and having that shut off some pro-inflammatory cytokines, and really excited about that. One thing that I always find interesting is people try to get into a direct selling company at the very beginning stages because they think that's when they're going to make their money. That's how they're going to build their business. I can tell you that there is so much of a tremendous opportunity to start now. Start where you're at. Start by talking to people. Start by learning about the products. Get excited about what's new and coming out. Get excited about, we talked about lavender and how that can shut off cortisol. How long has lavender been part of Young Living? Since the beginning. So there's always a way to make your health better by the products that we have. There's always a way to recruit people to better health by the products that we're coming out with. So don't get discouraged because you weren't part of the beginning of Young Living. The opportunity is now. The opportunity is going to be here for a very long time, and we're part of a company that is vertically integrated to take it from the soil in the field to the cells in your body.
I love it. That's so awesome. And it's so fun that you're able to kind of do that alongside of what you're doing here at Young Living. Like, it really ties in together and goes hand in hand. So that's super exciting for you. How much longer do you have on that, would you say?
So I'm about 60% done. I will be graduating in December of 2026, and that may push to January of 2027 if I want to have a good holiday season in 2026.
I know what that's like. My wife's getting her master's right now, and so she's kind of the same way. It's like, do I want to have a happy December or do I just want to have a longer December? So, well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insight, your history, your knowledge, your expertise. It's really fun to get to meet you and, of course, hear your insight as an outsider, essentially coming in and seeing all that we have to offer and all that we do. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that you have.
Thank you very much. This has been an honor.
And I'm sure we'll have you back because people love hearing you talk. So.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Howard.
Thanks.
And thank you, of course, for tuning into this episode of The Wild Drop. Remember, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, our website, which is www.youngliving.com. And, of course, make sure to check out the podcast on our brand new Olio app today. That is Olio by Young Living on the Apple and Google Store. Don't forget to oil up Young Living family. This is Jacob Young, dropping out. Take care.